Hello, everybody, and welcome to another beautiful Thursday morning. You're listening to Bhavani at I Eat Green on the Progressive Radio Network. And I have a great show for all of you today. My guest will be Gigi Pomerantz. She's the founder of YoutHaiti, which is a nonprofit organization committed to building ecological sanitation facilities in Haiti. And I'll be telling you more about her when she comes on. But first, I want to talk about things going on in the news, ways that you can take action, and of course, share my weekly recipe with all of you. So lots going on in the news. First, I want to share some happy stuff. NOFA New York, which is the Northeast Organic Farming Association, New York chapter, which I'm on the board of, they have a funder who is partnering with them to help transition Long Island farmland to organic. And so this is a real big deal. If you are a farmer on Long Island and would like to transition and need the support, both farmer to farmer support and financial support to actually do that transition, NOFA New York has your back. So I would be happy to share contact information with you if you want to learn more information about that. And I really look forward to getting more and more organic farms here on Long Island. Right now, we have lots of farming happening out on the East End, but unfortunately, a lot of it is not organic. So transitioning to that will really help Long Island, both in the environment, but also for all of us in our drinking water, since we depend on our aquifers for our water, and all the nitrogen fertilizers that they put into the soil is seeping down into the aquifers and is not good for us. So that's really great news, and I'm happy to share that with you. Also, I just want to celebrate, Biden coming on strong, to really confront climate change and to really, take some active steps towards reducing climate change. So, he's doing a lot. Signing executive orders as he can and really trying to make some change. One of the things that he did do is he reversed the Keystone Pipeline, which is something that, for those of you that have been following me, know that years ago I actually went down and protested and got arrested for my protest in front of the White House for the Keystone Pipeline. And like the Keystone Pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline also is going through indigenous land, going through their burial grounds, but it's also just really bad for the environment. And it's, transporting dirty crude oil from up in Canada, and it is not even for our use. It's really mostly for export. And so it really doesn't make sense for us to take all the risk just so that these companies can make lots of money. So we really are asking President Biden to join the Dakota Access Pipeline as well as the Keystone Pipeline, and ask them to please cancel permits. Right now, they're actually they're working at the Dakota Pipeline without any permits, and we really want to get them to close that down. So there's a petition on my website to the U.S. Army Corps to ask them to comply with the law and take the pipeline out of operation. Another thing I have on my website asking you to take action on is to slow down the line at meatpacking plants. As we all saw, Trump on his way out the door went and signed all these executive orders to weaken climate issues and, of course, give pardons to people that don't deserve pardons, and to do as much havoc as he could on the way out the door. And one of them was to increase the speed of slaughter line production. And we all have seen that, essential workers, meatpacking plants were heavily hit by the pandemic, and speeding up the production line is only going to make that situation worse. And not only, will it be bad for the pandemic, but more worker injuries happen. Meatpacking plants are really dangerous working conditions, and it also puts animals at greater risk of inhumane slaughter. So please sign that petition as well. There was a great article in the New York Times this week about climate change and how climate change affects your health. And so often people don't want to do anything because it just seems like climate change is so far in the distance and doesn't really affect their everyday lives. And until people really feel it affecting their everyday lives, they're less likely to really take a stance. But this article was really great, showing how it really does affect our everyday lives. I mean, of course, very often less affluent communities are more impacted by it because they're located closer to incinerators and garbage dumps and oil plants and things like that. But we really saw it this year with climate change, with the increased heat and the wildfires that were happening out west. It's really affecting a lot of people's health, and the heat waves are also affecting people's health. Climate change also endangers the safety of our food and our water supplies. So there's lots of reasons that we really want to reverse climate change, and we really need to take steps to do that. And it's not something that's really just out there in the future. And there's things that we all can do, whether it's, trying to use our car less, whether it's purchasing fuel efficient or electric cars, and as well as changing our diet. And I've talked to you about that a lot. Meat production is really, really very heavy on climate change. It really impacts agriculture in general, like 25% of all the climate change is associated with that. So changing one's diet, eating less meat or cutting it out really can make a difference also. So check out this article in the New York Times, and just pay attention to what you can do and what we all can do to really help mitigate climate change. And now I hope you all have enjoyed the snow. I just do want to make that, mention that as well. It was just so beautiful to really get a really nice, light, fluffy snowstorm where we could really go out and play in the snow and go cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. So I hope many of you who are in the snow got to actually enjoy it and did not only see it as a hassle where you had to shovel and, shovel out your cars and things like that, because that's a part of reality too. But if you can get past that part and really enjoy it and think of it as a playland, that's really fun. So I want to share with you this week's recipe. And I actually was inspired to make a recipe that has to do with Haiti, since I was interviewing Gigi Pomerantz today, who's doing her work in Haiti. And a couple of weeks ago, I had Leah Penniman on from Soulfire Farm, who is also Haitian, and she was talking about, cultural foods. And soup jamu is a soup that is really representative of Independence Day and freedom for the Haiti people. And traditional soup jamu has meat in it, and I was inspired to make a vegan version of this traditional Haitian soup, and it came out delicious. I don't know, I can't honestly say what I was going for because I had never had it before, so I don't really know what I was aiming for, but it certainly made a really delicious soup, different than one that I've made before, and it was delicious. So I'm going to share that with you now, and I hope you all get a chance to make it. So one thing that Leah said in her talk about soup jamu when she makes her vegan soup is that the things that you can't change or that are really essential in this soup is the pumpkin or the squash. You can use kabocha squash or butternut squash or pumpkin. You need that, and then you also need some spicy peppers. She recommended Scotch bonnet pepper. And that's what I used. So you can use that, or you can use a jalapeno pepper, but you need those peppers to really get it spicy. So I started with 4 cups of squash cubes. I actually, my squash was just too big, so I just cut it up. I measured it out, and I had 4 cups worth of squash cubes that I roasted in the oven. at 350 degrees until they were soft. And it actually took a long time, even cut up chunks. It took at least a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes to get soft enough. You're going to need 8 cups of boiling water, 1 large onion chopped, 1 shallot diced, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, 3 carrots chopped, 1 celery stalk chopped, 2 potatoes cubed, 1 sweet potato cubed, a quarter Napa cabbage. And since every Napa cabbage is different, I did measure the amount that I cut up, and it was about 4 cups of cut up Napa cabbage. You could also use a green cabbage if you wanted, but Napa cabbage is what I had. 1 turnip diced, 3 cups of broccoli florets, 1 cup of sweet corn. I used frozen, of course, in season. You can use fresh. You can even use canned if you didn't have frozen. 2 of the Scotch bonnet peppers or other spicy pepper. And I diced them up really fine. And I put on rubber gloves to do that because you don't want to ever cut up spicy peppers with your bare hands because it can really, really do you damage if you then wipe your eye or, go to the bathroom and wipe yourself. It's really bad. So you do want to put those gloves on. 3/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, 1.5 teaspoons of thyme, 1 can of coconut milk, salt and pepper to taste. Then I chopped up 4 scallions, a tablespoon of cilantro or parsley, and juice of 2 lemons that you're going to garnish the soup with when you serve it. And I also put in a tablespoon of honey just to give the coconut milk a little bit of sweetness. And depending on your squash, you can choose to do that or not. But 1 to 2 tablespoons of honey or maple syrup or agave, whatever you like to use to just give it a little bit of sweetness, but not too much, just a little bit. And if you'd like, you can add a cup of cooked rice to that or rice pasta or regular pasta, whatever you want. If you'd like, you don't need to. And we actually even added some beans to it when we were serving it up. You can add, a little bit of chickpeas or some other bean that you have if you wanted to add some protein to it and make it a whole meal. So first, like I said, I laid the squash out on a cookie sheet that I lined with parchment paper and sprayed it with some oil, and I roasted that until they were soft. And like I said, it took about 30 to 40 minutes to do that. Meanwhile, while that was cooking, in a large stock pot, I sauteed the onions and shallots for about 5 minutes until they were translucent. Added the carrots, the celery, the potatoes, and the sweet potato, and the turnips, and continued cooking that for another few minutes. I added the garlic to that as well. Then I added the broccoli and the Napa cabbage and the spicy pepper and cooked that down for another 5 minutes. Then I added the 8 cups of boiling water and the frozen corn and brought that back up to a boil and then simmered it on low. And at that point, my squash was ready to come out of the oven. I took it out of the oven and I combined it in a food processor with the coconut milk, another cup of water, and blended that until smooth. And then I added that back into the pot of soup. And I found the soup was still a little thin and a little chunky. So I actually took a couple scoops of the vegetables that were in the soup. I tried to not take the broccoli because I wanted those broccoli florets to be whole. But I took some of the potatoes and the carrots and I pureed another cup of that in the food processor and added it back into the soup so that the soup was just even a little thicker. And just let that cook down a little bit. Add the honey to the soup broth. And before serving, you're going to add the lime juice, some scallions, and parsley. And you can add that individually to each bowl as a garnish. And it's beautiful. If you want, you can serve a lime wedge on the side instead of squeezing the lime juice into the whole pot. But the lime juice is really so great. It just, makes the soup pop with the spicy peppers. It's just a beautiful compliment. And it was delicious. And like I said, I really didn't know what I was going for, but the soup was really, really wonderful. So I hope you all get to make it. And if you do, please let me know how you liked it. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to all of you my guest this week, Gigi Pomerantz. She's the founder and chair of YoutHaiti, which is a nonprofit organization committed to building ecological sanitation facilities in communities throughout Haiti. Gigi is a retired nurse practitioner who traveled to Haiti for the first time in 2006 as part of a medical mission team. She was always interested in prevention as a focus of her practice, and she looked at health problems as challenges to prevent. And when she saw the toll of chronic worms and diarrhea, malnutrition, and the lack of access to basic necessities like sanitation and clean water, she searched for affordable ways to address these health inequities. Gigi founded YoutHaiti in 2008 to work with local Haitians to address some of these basic needs. Since 2006, Gigi has been back to Haiti 26 times. YoutHaiti has built a Center for Sustainable Development as a training center in rural Haiti. And dozens of people have traveled back to Haiti with Gigi to learn about these challenges of living and working in a developing country firsthand. So Gigi, welcome.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here.
Thank you. So, before I really get into questions, I thought maybe I could just ask you a little bit about your history and what inspired you to first go to Haiti.
Well, the story I tell everyone is that I really wanted to go to Africa. That was sort of my dream. But traveling to Africa required a longer time commitment and a longer financial commitment, and it always seemed a bit out of reach. And then a friend of mine just happened to drop this idea on my lap that she had seen a posting for this medical mission to go to Haiti. And I really knew nothing about Haiti at the time. I knew nothing about their history. I knew that it was sort of French, and I studied French in school, so that was very helpful. But it was that first trip, I look back at it, and it was really an eye-opening experience. I went there prepared to do tropical medicine, and I had done all kinds of reading on tropical medicine, and not realizing that when you do medical mission, you're doing primary care and you're seeing so many of the same things that you see in the United States. And then you have layered on top of that the issues that the extreme poverty causes. So it was totally, I always feel like it was in some ways fate that drew me there. Haiti's our one of our nearest neighbors. It's only 700 miles from Miami. And yet it is a world apart.
Yeah. I remember, going to the Dominican Republic many, many years ago, and, them always talking about the Haitians coming over, and, they were really considered the slaves almost in the Dominican Republic. It was really horrible hearing how they were referring to the Haitian people. Can you share a little bit of the history of Haiti and why they were considered, so, or at least from their neighbors that they share the island with? Yeah. What's the battle going on there?
Well, altogether, I think the history of Haiti is fascinating. Haiti, in the colonial times, was the richest colony in the Western Hemisphere, richer than the 13 American colonies. There were more slaves on the island of Hispaniola than there were in our 13 original states, if you can imagine what that means. Right. But in 1804, there was actually, starting in 1792, the slaves rose up, and it was a 12-year war that eventually overthrew the French. And they destroyed a lot of the wealth that the French had created on the backs of the slaves. So they burned tobacco farms and sugar cane, and they basically had to start from scratch with a lot of that. The country continued to be quite hierarchical. So the mulattoes who had French blood in them became the ruling class and continue even to this day to be the wealthier class than the Blacks that lived in the countryside and that had been former slaves. I forget what year it was, but I want to say in 1820 or something like that, Haiti invaded the Spanish part of the island of Hispaniola, which became the Dominican Republic. And I think that was really the beginning of the animosity between these two sides. And they were there for a number of years, and eventually the Spanish threw them out, and there was a division between the two countries. In the 1950s, I believe it was, the Dominican Republic had a despotic leader, Trujillo, and he was just as bad as Papa Doc in terms of, killing people and just control. But one of the things he valued was trees, and he valued trees more than people. The Haitians depended upon trees for making charcoal and for being able to cook. And so that became a dividing line. If you fly over the island of Hispaniola, you can see from the air the border. You probably at no other country in the world is it so clear, the border between the Dominican Republic and Haiti. But so since the 1820s, there's been a lot of tension between the two countries, and there have been slaughters. There's a river along the border that they call the River of Blood, because the Dominicans slaughtered thousands of Haitians and just threw them into the river. But because of Haiti's poverty, Haitians always seem to sneak over the border and to find work in the Dominican Republic. And they work a lot of the sugarcane fields. And for years, they have not been recognized as citizens. And then those born in the Dominican Republic originally had birthright citizenship like we get in the United States. But just a few years ago, the Dominicans reversed that. And they said all of the Haitians that were born since 1939 were no longer Dominican citizens. But they're also not Haitian citizens. They were born in the Dominican Republic. They speak Spanish. So it's a
really. Wow. That's what Trump was trying to do here.
Right. Well, they expelled thousands of people who are now living in camps on the border, on the Haitian side of the border. It's really a disastrous situation.
Wow. Now, you went to Haiti the first time before the devastating earthquake, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you were already connected before the earthquake.
Yes. And I went 1 month after the earthquake.
That was in 2010, right?
Correct.
Uh-huh.
And I actually did some medical mission work in the Port-au-Prince area in some of the refugee camps at that time for the people, who had survived the earthquake. And then I went back up to the village where our work is mainly centered, which is in the far southwestern corner of Haiti. And many, people who survived the earthquake actually walked on foot, a couple hundred miles back to their home villages because where they lived in Port-au-Prince was destroyed. So that's sort of an aside from the work that we usually do, which is this ecological sanitation, but we also respond to needs that come up because there are so many emergencies, as it were. So we try to create work for people after the earthquake, people that had returned to the village and didn't kind of really have their place. After hurricanes, we have also tried to create work or responded to immediate needs. And then, in late 2010, so the earthquake was in January, and in late 2010, cholera came to Haiti. And that's another kind of international tragedy. So there had never been cholera in Haiti, but there's been a large UN presence since Aristide was deposed. And so there was a Nepalese troop that had recently arrived, peacekeepers, air quotes. And
in 2010?
In October of 2010. And the base where they were, some company came to clean out their septic system and dumped it in a river, a major river that fed a lot of areas. Well, the Nepalese have endemic cholera. So it infected the water. It started by infecting the local people, and cholera is very contagious. So the first people get infected. They have profuse diarrhea and vomiting wherever they might be. Whoever touches it, gets near it, gets infected. And within weeks, the disease had crossed the entire country. More than 10,000 people died over the next couple of years, but I think close to 8,000 in the very first year. And I believe 100,000 people got ill.
Wow. Wow. And you started YoutHaiti in 2006 or 2008. When did you start your organization?
Our organization actually started officially, our 501c3, in 2008. But I went back. So I went originally on the medical mission in 2006. And in 2007, I went back and started working with a group of young people in this very rural village, about 12 hours outside of Port-au-Prince at the time. It's a little easier to get there now. They've finished some roads. And what happened was, on my very first mission, we had a local health needs meeting with the local educators and health agents. And they identified sanitation. And as I'm sitting in that meeting and they're translating from Creole to English, I'm reading this booklet that someone had brought along called Sanitation and Cleanliness for a Healthy Environment. It's put out by the Hesperian Foundation. It's a great organization. They do all kinds of wonderful books. If anybody wants to look that up, hesperian.org, where there's no doctor, where there's no dentist, where there's no midwife, and how people can take care of themselves, particularly in the developing world. Many of their publications are published in many languages. This short publication of, 50 or 60 pages described ways to do sanitation in the developing world and how to do community organizing around that. And I thought, oh, this is pretty interesting. I wonder if anybody's interested in this. And then I shared it with some of my new Haitian friends, and they were like, yeah, that sounds great. So I went back about 10 months after my first visit, and I met with a group of youth from the village, mostly high school students. The man who had been my initial contact was the youth leader in the church. And he put together this group, and we started to learn together. What is an arbor-loo? What is a urine diverting dry toilet? How could we build?
What is an arbor-loo?
An arbor-loo is basically a shallow pit composting latrine. So a normal latrine is anywhere between 10 feet and 30 feet deep. An arbor-loo is usually about 1 meter or 3 feet deep. You make a concrete platform that is movable and liftable, and a shelter that's also movable and liftable. Every time you use the latrine, you add some organic matter. It could be grass or weeds, or it could even be dirt, leaves, so that you're basically composting right into that shallow pit. Depending upon the size of your family and the usage, that pit will fill in 6 to 9 months, at which time you dig another pit 1 meter deep. You move that concrete cover and your little shelter. You top off your pit with about 5 inches of soil. You wait, maybe a couple of weeks for everything to settle down, and then you plant in it. In general, we're planting trees. And those trees are like fed from the compost that's already there. They tend to grow bigger and fruit sooner. We've found trees that have fruited in as soon as 2 years after planting them in a arbor-loo pit. So it's something that people do right in their yard. Most rural Haitians are farmers. So they're very familiar with this, and they'll have all kinds of, things growing in their yard. So it's a very convenient way for them to have a controlled place rather than just going in the open, what we call open defecation.
Mm-hmm.
We did a study in 2009, I think it was, and found that 85% of the population in the area where we work were practicing open defecation, just going in an open field. And that's the practice that we are trying to eliminate.
Wow. What percentage do you say? 85%?
85%.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. And of the 15% that weren't at that time, some of them were using arbor-loos or other public facilities that we had already built by that point. So,
yeah. That's a dramatic change. And I think for young girls, more than anything, it's a traumatic change or dramatic change, because for the first time, I mean, for many young people, they couldn't go to school if they had their periods, right? Right. They didn't know how to deal with it. So can you talk a little bit about how that has impacted young girls and changed their ability to go to school?
Well, so let me talk about the other kind of toilet that we build, which is a urine diverting dry toilet, because we build those at schools, and we've built about 35 of those so far. So a urine diverting toilet basically has a special kind of toilet bowl that separates the urine from the fecal matter. I'm trying to be very polite here. And so the urine is collected in a tank behind the facility, which is a permanent facility built out of concrete block. The urine is diluted 3-to-1 with water and used directly as fertilizer in the garden. And it's just remarkable what a difference it makes, particularly for nitrogen needing crops. The solid waste falls into a container, and again, it's mixed with either ash or dried leaves, and it decomposes in that container. When that first container is full, the toilet bowl is moved to an alternate container. So there's two containers below the toilet, and the toilet bowl sits just over one of them at a time. The solid material sits for at least a year, and when it is completely decomposed, there's a door in the back that's kind of opened, and the compost is taken out. And generally, we take that and put it in a secondary compost for another 3 months, just for safety's sake. But we've had that compost tested after it's sat, and it's free of worms and free of cholera and free of E. coli. So it's as long as the compost gets hot enough, you've created another soil amendment. So now both boys and girls have a secure private place to use the bathroom. And that certainly helps young girls when they're menstruating. But out of this kind of looking at this, we also started a number of years ago a menstrual hygiene education program. So in the developing world, as you said, many girls drop out of school when they hit puberty. The challenges of going to school on their period. They may not have access to sanitary supplies. And if they don't have a private place to change whatever sanitary supply they have, then obviously that's also becomes an issue. So our menstrual hygiene education program, we have an educator who is a woman who has been going into classrooms from the 3rd through the 13th grade. They have 13 grades till high school graduation in Haiti. And talking about reproductive physiology, teaching them how to make reusable cloth sanitary napkins, which are actually very popular even here for people who are ecologically minded and don't want to be using those paper products and just throwing them away. So they can be reused and washed, but they're very absorbent. We made we'd made them first here to kind of just learn the process, and then we taught some women how to make them in Haiti. And so we're giving girls more of an opportunity. One of the interesting things when we started the hygiene education program is we would do it either during like a recess period or maybe at the end of the school day, and the girls would stay for this, half hour, 45-minute lesson. And we found all the boys were just standing at the window, like looking in and listening. And they finally asked to be included. And so now it's boys and girls. The teachers are always still there. The teachers have many questions. So they also are really lacking in that education and that knowledge. Basic reproductive physiology. So first of all, what is ovulation and what is menses, but also how do you not get pregnant? How do you get pregnant? How do you stay clean? What's the best way to wash yourself? Because of the lack of privacy in most households, many times girls and women do not remove their underwear when they bathe. And so there's a lot of vaginal infections that are not sexually transmitted. They're having to do with hygiene. And we spoke with the local doctor at length about this. What were the issues that he saw? And he just stressed this: please teach them how to bathe appropriately, to take off their underwear and wash themselves, head to foot, not foot to head. They're walking barefoot, they're in the dirt, don't want to carry that dirt upwards. And it's information that will, save lives and also just make people healthier.
Wow.
So
that was one of the questions I was going to ask, was whether the boys got something equivalent, but I'm glad to hear that they're brought in too, because birth control, I would assume, if they don't know about menses, they don't know much about birth control. So, so has your program expanded across the country, or is it still pretty much in that one rural village?
So our primary focus is in a geographic area that they call a section, which encompasses 18 villages. But we have worked in about 6 out of the 10 departments in Haiti, basically on contract. So if there's a church group or some other group that's working in another area of the country, and that would like a consultation, we will go and teach them or perhaps build a facility. So there's a community in another area of the country called Artibonite, where our technician has gone, now he's gone many times, and built over 450 arborloos for that community in collaboration with this particular church out of Maryland. So yes, we've built all over the country, but our main focus is in this area in Southwest Haiti, which is quite isolated. The people there, when we go to these small villages, they'll say no one else pays any attention. They're so grateful for the attention that we pay to them. They're always asking us for a lot more than we can provide, but we do the best that we can.
Right. So how large is your organization now? Like, how many people do you have working with you? Or is it primarily you in the States and everybody else is Haitian, or do you have other people, Americans, working with you on this end?
So we have a board that's based mainly in Wisconsin, where I was living at the time when I founded YoutHaiti. Our board currently has 9 members, 3 of whom are Haitian. One lives in Haiti and the other 2 are stateside. We're all volunteers here in the States. We have a staff of 12 that are all paid in Haiti, and they're all Haitian. All of the kind of new ideas as we evolve come from the local community. So for example, after Hurricane Matthew in 2017, we had been doing vegetable gardens with using our compost, but Hurricane Matthew destroyed, I don't know what percentage, huge percentages of the trees in this area of the country that was actually one of the few areas that still had trees. So the locals asked for help with replanting trees. And so since 2017, we've planted more than 10,000 trees. And we have an ongoing tree nursery project now that actually is in some ways taken over our sanitation work. The thing with one of our philosophies is that we need to be self-sustaining. At some point, the board from the U.S. may no longer exist. We hope that the organization will be independent of any outside funding other than funding they might find from grants or whatever. So with our tree nursery program, we're able to buy seeds and grow seedlings and then sell them basically at the cost. So we're able to have at least some kind of ongoing income flow. Then we recently got a contract with the Haitian Ministry of Agriculture for coffee seedlings. Coffee is a big crop in Haiti, but there was, again, destruction from the hurricane, but also from an infestation of it's like a coffee beetle or something called escolite. And so they're needing to replace those coffee trees. So that's a contract with the government for us to distribute, and actually will be an income stream. So for our toilets, we're trying to make this into what we call a sanitation business. That's a big thing internationally in the developing world, that if you actually look at the dollars and cents of the need for sanitation, where 2.6 billion people in the world don't have access to a toilet, there's not enough donor money out there to cover all of that. And so we have been working on a model to sell the household arbor at cost with small monthly payments. And the program got off to a great start, but then Hurricane Matthew happened and some other big storms, and people's incomes were wiped out. And so they were no longer able to make the payments. Now we're still trying to figure out how we can provide a service that people will participate in, so that there's money coming in to be able to fund the next toilet and the next toilet. When we build toilets at schools, the school provides about 10% of the cost, usually in kind. So they'll provide the water, the sand, the gravel, which they may gather, or maybe the parents from the school will chip in, and then 50% of the labor they will provide. And then we have our staff that's providing the other half of the labor and the majority of the cost of the materials. But we feel that it's really important for people to not be given just a handout, but a hand up, that they feel like they're participating in the projects themselves.
Sure. So how do you see the mission growing beyond? I mean, it seems like, as you said, you're addressing the needs as they present themselves. So you're doing the tree, right. The tree project, and the toilets continue. Where do you see yourself going next, or you just have your hands full with what you got?
We do have our hands full with what we've got. I'm hoping for more training for the staff in terms of the business model, to try to figure out a way both for our staff to learn how to make that a sustainable business, and for us to understand the community needs, and how we can meet those in a way that people can afford. Haiti's in a very difficult place economically right now. There's been devaluation of the Haitian gourd, the environment, and all the environmental problems have really wreaked havoc. crops when there's periods of drought and not enough rain. So Haiti used to be Hispaniola used to be an island of rainforest, like similar places in the Caribbean. But when you cut down the trees, rain stops. I'm not enough of a geologist or a meteorologist to understand all the
right.
But I know that when there's no trees, it becomes drier and drier.
Right.
And then when it does rain, it washes topsoil away into the ocean. So trying to figure out how to replant the trees and reclaim the soil is a really important part of doing sanitation. If people are open defecating and then the rain comes and washes that away, where does it go to? It goes into the river where people are bathing and washing their clothes or getting their drinking water, or it's just going into their soil that's contaminating, their area. So these are things that are really important, and just educating people. I mean, we have educated probably 20,000 folks in that area about where do the bacteria come from? Where do the worms come from? What happens when they shit in the open? There's a method called community-led total sanitation where you do something called a walk of shame. And that is you walk with the people through their community and you point out all the places where they've taken a dump.
Oh, no.
And then you ask them to do a calculation of how much, if you put all that big pile together, how big would that pile be? And what if a little piece of that got into their drinking water? You do it very visually. And people are like, oh, now I get it. Now we have to fix this problem. And trying to come up with solutions on how to fix it. Where if even one person in a community is still shitting in the open, it's going to contaminate the environment for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And how much of the materials that you use to make these arbor loo or the other toilets that you do, how much of those raw materials can you get from within Haiti, or do you have to import them?
Yeah, that's a real problem. So cement is important. They used to have a cement factory, but Haiti, with its international pressure on them in various different ways, their cement factory closed. So I believe all of the cement is imported either from South America or maybe from the US, I'm not sure. And then the other thing that is used to make any product with cement would be rebar. And that, of course, is also imported. So that makes things much more expensive. Like I've read in Africa where they also do arbor loos, an arbor loo can cost like $20, $25. In Haiti, it's now costing us $150 to build an arbor loo. Now, when a person's annual income might be $320, might be $600 if they're making $2 a day, right? No, $700, to pay $150 for.
And what's the difference? Just the cement?
Well, I think just everything. It's an island nation. So much is imported, so there's cement and there's rebar and then there's tin for roofing or for walls.
Well, is there other things you can use instead of cement, like clay? Is there clay on the island?
Some of the soil is very clay-like. I've seen people use that for walls of things that are considered not as permanent. Like there's a lot of people's homes, there's a kind of a range of how homes are built, from thatch walls all the way up to concrete block. Anything besides concrete block is looked down upon. So when you're building a public facility, such as a public toilet, it's really important to the Haitians that it have a certain look. it has to be painted, it has to be beautiful. They might not keep it that way, but when you're giving them a facility, it needs to have a certain appearance.
Right. And is it a hole in the ground over the, in the cement, or do you actually have a raised toilet seat type of thing?
So for the urine diverting toilets, the entire thing is above ground. There's no hole in the ground. So it uses no water and touches no water. Arbor-loos, on the other hand, are a shallow pit in the ground, and you have to be careful about the level of the water table. So we have put in arbor-loos in some areas that we did not realize when it rained, the water table rose, and that's very problematic. So you need to know a little bit about the local geology, I guess, in terms of water table, to know where to place an arbor-loo. So now we're a little bit more careful. That was in our early days, and we didn't realize, oh, that's going to flood out. So.
Right. So I know, your goal is to become self-sustaining, and that's a righteous goal. But in the meantime, do you do fundraising? And how can people who are listening to this show help?
Yes. Well, most of our support comes from individual donors around the country, and that is like the most important part. So people can donate by going to our website, www.YouthHaiti, that's YoutHaiti.org, only one H.
Right.
So www.YouthAiti.org. Right now, we're in the midst of trying to plan a virtual event for Haitian Flag Day in May. And that's another opportunity. On our website, I believe you can join our newsletter, or you can write me at Gigi, G-I-G-I, at YouthHaiti.org, and I'd be happy to add you to our newsletter, let you know what's going on and when we're going to be doing this virtual event. We also look for grant funding, but I can tell you that building toilets in Haiti is not considered very sexy, and that's been very, very challenging. We did raise some money last year for COVID relief, so that's another example of when COVID hit Haiti. We did a huge education program and distributed masks and taught people how to make masks, reinforced the hand washing. So when there's urgent situations like that, we can sometimes find directed funding for programs like that. And then the other thing that I'm working on right now, in the past, we've done live events, and we have sold Haitian art at those events. Haiti's well known for its metalwork art as well as for its paintings. And yesterday I was spending time taking photos of metalwork that I brought back with me last year, and we didn't have a live event, and trying to figure out a way how to market that online as a way to support the local artists as well as to support Youth Haiti. So keep your eyes open at our website, join our newsletter, and your help is very, very much appreciated.
Well, Gigi, thank you so much. The work you're doing is awesome. Those people are so lucky to have you. And I really encourage everyone who's been listening to this show to please make a donation and share this information with your network so that we can help support this much needed organization.
Thank you so much, Bhavani. Thanks for the invitation. This is great.
You're welcome. Everyone who's been listening, thank you so much for joining us. You've been listening to Bhavani at I Eat Green on the Progressive Radio Network. See you all again next week. Bye for now.